Hey, night owls, candle burners, and history gluttons. Before we pull back the creaking iron door, you should probably hit that subscribe button. Tap the like so YouTube's algorithm doesn't toss this video into its own oubliette, and drop a comment telling me what time it is where you're listening. Seriously, I love seeing whether you're drifting off at 2 a.m. in Boston or 11 p.m. in Berlin. Dim the lights, tuck the blankets snug under your chin, maybe keep one eye on the closet, because tonight we're descending beneath Europe's grand castles, below the polished banquet halls, into the places nobody carved into postcards, the torture chambers. You're walking down a spiral staircase so narrow your shoulders graze cold limestone on both sides. Above, the revelry of a feast thumps through the floor like distant drums. But down here, every footstep echoes alone. The air thickens, torches sputter. Every flame feels personal, throwing your shadow ahead like a guilty confession. It smells of damp straw, rusted iron, and something peppery you can't place until you realize old blood has a tang. Back in the 13th century, no respectable fortress was complete without its question room. Justice, in theory, was divine. In practice, it was damp, windowless, and staffed by men who called themselves familiars of the court. Their job? Persuasion, though not the kind Cicero practiced. And before you imagine every medieval magistrate cackling, remember, most saw torture as paperwork, grotesquely routine. Grip the quill, heat the irons, move on to lunch. At the foot of the stairs, you meet the door. It's oak, so swollen with humidity, the grain bulges like veins. There's no handle, only a slot where jailers shove food and, occasionally, hope, if they like you. On execution days, the corridor outside thrums with merchants, priests, even children sneaking peeks. Suffering was public entertainment long before Netflix invented true crime. Inside, lanterns hang from hooks hammered straight into stone. One flicker reveals the Spanish donkey, though Spain used it rarely, a wedge-shaped plank like a crooked horse's back. Prisoners sat astride until their own weight split muscle from bone. Another lantern glow drifts over the strappado rope dangling from the vault. Simple, tie your wrists, yank you skyward until shoulders pop. Medieval engineering wasn't all cathedrals and flying buttresses. Pause. Listen. That rhythmic drip isn't water. It's tar cooling in a bucket. Tar plus goose feathers equals humiliation package. Because pain alone sometimes felt insufficient. In Avignon, a notary wrote of one heretic coated head to toe, then released into streets at noon. Children laughed. Dogs barked. The condemned baked alive beneath Provençal sun. The record ends with an invoice for 18 liters of pitch. Itemized, bureaucratic. Now breathe. The chamber isn't large, but the silence is. What breaks it is a rat dragging something slithery across straw. Rats thrived down here. They nibbled restraints, toes, paperwork. In York, 1345, a sheriff complained his parchment confession roster vanished overnight, gnawed by vermin. Convenient for prisoners who could no longer recall their crimes when the roster had literal bite marks. Speaking of confessions, medieval law loved them. A sworn admission closed a case as tidily as a wax seal. But words produced under duress carried spiritual weight too. The church argued that agony purged lies the way fire refines gold. It's twisted alchemy. Melt the body, extract the truth. You, kneeling in that clammy dark, suddenly feel your own secrets wriggle like worms. What would you admit after one turn on the rack? That you lied to your mother? Stole a loaf? Imagined treason in a dream? The inquisitors kept lists of suggested offenses ready to seed your memory. False recollection spread like mold in these walls. Let's meet one of the craftsmen. Picture Brother Thierry, Dominican friar, spectacles fogged by torch smoke. He believes in order the way sailors believe in the sea. It might drown him, but without it, he's nothing. Thierry consults his vellum manual, Quaestiones Periculose, flipping to page 42. Recommended pressure per thumbscrew, indexed by prisoner age and gender. Science, of a sort. He gently fits the device over slender fingers. You watch him crank. At the first splinter, Thierry crosses himself. Professional, not cruel, just convinced your mortal coil is a cocoon to be pierced so the butterfly of truth can emerge. Who said metaphors were harmless? And you can't scream forever. Down here, architects designed walls with acoustic cunning. Angled niches swallowed echoes, preventing surface dwellers from hearing your terror. When moats lapped those same stones, frogs croaked loud enough to mask even the rack's creak. Nature itself became accomplice. But let's widen the lens. Torture wasn't equal opportunity. Nobles often negotiated privileged torment. Softer ropes, shorter sessions, sometimes no torture at all if the heraldry was shiny enough. Peasants? They were the practice rounds. In Prague, 1422, an entire village was interrogated because one baker swore he'd seen the moon turn black. Authorities feared witchcraft. Villagers feared authorities. 23 confessions later, the moon still shone silver, but the village had lost half its workforce. Yet, records also hint at small mercies. A jailer in Antwerp smuggled chicken broth to a woman accused of poisoning her husband. She died anyway, but a note scratched into her cell thanked him with shaky Latin, Benedicat te Deus. In Siena, a doctor lobbied for guinea pig trials to test new torments. City council refused, citing cruelty to animals. Humans, however, remained fair game. Lean closer to the Iron Maiden standing sentinel in the corner. Spoiler, most were 19th century fakes sold to thrill Gothic tourists. Original medieval prisons favored efficiency over theatrics. Real pain came from understated tools, wedges, cords, water. Waterboarding, yes, older than New World pirates. Manuals advised binding the face so the fluid enters but will not depart swiftly, prolonging panic. A priest stood by calculating how many Ave Marias before unconsciousness. Suddenly, you notice the ceiling hatch. Snow-cold air drifts down. In winter, interrogators perched prisoners beneath it. Hypothermia loosened lips, and ice preserved bodies so they could resume next dawn. One clerk noted, "The man's eyelids froze shut. We thawed them with candle heat so he might view the instruments and grow repentant." Clinical. Chilling. And yet, here's a twist. Some prisoners claimed these depths offered clarity. Chronicle of Lubeck tells of a thief who, hanging by wrists, composed a hymn praising forgiveness. Monks later sang it in Mass. Trauma birthing art, pain distilled into melody. Maybe suffering never stays confined. It seeps upward like damp, staining cathedrals above with unseen stories. Swipe away the cobwebs on that side alcove and you'll see graffiti, tally marks, crude saints, love letters to no one. One reads, "I was afraid," then empty, then nothing. Time in stone. Archaeologists discovered similar scratches under the Palais de Justice in Paris. They left them intact, museums behind locked doors within other locked doors. You feel the chamber shrinking, breaths shallow. But our night's journey isn't done. We've only cracked the first door of 7. Ahead, we'll stalk the corridors where whispers of torture shaped kings' policies, where physicians penned anatomical notes while twisting sinew, where executioners went home to families and tried to wash iron smell from their beards. Next episode, we'll climb into the mind of the torturer. What dreams chased him? What nightmares he bottled up and sold to the next generation? If you're brave enough to follow, make sure notifications are on so the algorithm rings its little bell when part 2 drops. And before you let sleep carry you from this subterranean vault back to your warm pillow, remember to comment below. Tell me, which detail gripped you hardest? The rats chewing legal records? The snow through the ceiling hatch? Or the idea of privileged pain for the nobility? Your words keep this channel fed better than any midnight gruel. Close your eyes, just for a beat, and imagine the clack of heavy boots on flagstones above your head. 1, 2, 3, pause. They stop exactly over the hatch you noticed last time, the one that leaks winter through its seams. A lock snaps open. Fresh torch smell swims down the stairwell. The boots descend, but it's not you they're coming for tonight. It's me. I'm dragging you back into the chamber to meet the man everyone else only whispers about. The master of questions, the artist of agony, the torturer himself. Before we push the door, tap subscribe. Trust me, it helps keep the lights on in this gloomy channel. And tell me in the comments which modern sound sends chills down your spine. For me, it's the slow creak of an office elevator after midnight. Something about that metal sigh feels straight out of these dungeons. All right, lanterns up, hearts steady, because we're stepping into the psyche of a profession history prefers to pixelate. He's called Henricus, but nobody uses his name. In castle payroll scrolls, he's Custos Dolores, keeper of pain. Outside the fortress, he's invisible. Plain robe, plain beard, hands tucked. Arms big enough to hoist a wagon, yet wrists dainty when he threads cord through pulleys. Think medieval mortician crossed with a blacksmith and a monk who's lost his choir. Henricus grew into his calling the way millstones turn grain, slow, relentless. As a boy, he apprenticed to a smith. Bronze buckles, sword guards, hinges, he could coax metal into anything. Then plague took half the town, including his master. The Castellani needed fresh muscle, and Henricus knew iron. One night, the captain handed him pliers and said, "The prisoner's manacles have jammed. Fix them while they're on him." Snap, twist, a yelp. Job done. Someone patted him on the shoulder. "Congratulations, young man. You're a natural." But what does natural mean down here? Let's strip the myth. Torturers weren't cackling demons. They were civil employees, clocking hours, collecting modest wages, sometimes struggling to feed families because their trade was considered unclean. The town butcher sold him spoiled cuts. The midwife crossed herself when he passed. At church, he knelt in the back pew alone. Sin by association. Every dawn, Henricus performs 2 rituals. First, archive review. He pores over yesterday's confession parchment while sharpening his gouges. Handwriting shaky? Maybe too much pain too fast. Slower tomorrow. Second, mirror check. He stares until the torchlight flickers in his pupils and asks silently, "Do my eyes still look human?" If they do, he tells himself, he can keep working. You and I stand beside him now as he unrolls a leather kit. Inside, thumb screws graduated like seashell spirals. Wooden wedges labeled jaw, ankle, knee. Goosequill pens trimmed to sign statements. The tools of pain nestle with the tools of paperwork. Efficiency is salvation. Finish by noon. Deliver confessions to the scribe. Beat the bakery rush. Yes, the bakery. Torturers loved fresh bread. Scent masked the metallic ghost on their skin. Let's follow him into the chamber. A new prisoner shackled to the strappado rope trembles, noble by the purple lining of her cloak. Henricus notes details the way a physician notes pulse. Ring indent on finger, married. Ink smudge at thumb, scholar. Mild scoliosis, avoid full suspension or spine snaps early. Pain is a dosage problem. Too low and she stonewalls. Too high and she dies before admitting anything. The sweet spot is a symphony of increments. One crank, pause, question. Second crank, pause, question. He times screams like a metronome, adjusting tension as though tuning a lute. Meanwhile, a clerk scribbles each answer. Clerks were the hidden gears in the machine. Sometimes they misheard under the din. Sometimes they corrected testimony to fit legal templates. And if confessions seemed too clean, magistrates suspected bribery and, yes, interrogated the torturer. Henricus must dance between cruelty and credibility. Nobody tortures a torturer better than his own guildmates. Between sessions, he swabs the floor with vinegar and rosemary to cut blood smell. Superstition says iron rust mixed with terror can poison next day's outcomes. He swaps out straw so rats don't snack on ligaments left behind. Hygiene was twisted professionalism. A dirty chamber risked plague, and plague shut courts, and shut courts meant unpaid wages. Clean pain equals steady employment. Night falls. Upstairs, minstrels strum for visiting lords. Henricus sits on a 3-legged stool sharpening awls by torchlight, humming the same lullaby his mother sang before plague came. An odd tenderness wraps him. He tells you, "I don't hate them." He means prisoners. Hatred dulls precision. Feel the chill of that logic, affectionless, detached, almost fatherly. He might ask if you've eaten, loosen your bonds, then shatter your kneecap in one fluid motion. Because duty. Mindset matters. Many torturers kept moral diaries. In Vienna, an archivist found pages where one wrote, "Today I sought truth, not death. 3 confessions, 1 false. I could smell it. Fear alone forged those lies." Some saw themselves as lie-smiths, hammering deceptions until they cracked. Others wrestled guilt. A Catalan jailer begged forgiveness in margins. "Lord, I served the law, but murdered mercy. Let my children's hands stay clean." Henricus? He prays after every execution with blunt honesty. I did my task. If it be sin, weigh it light as straw. The repetition numbs, but never heals. Let's climb inside his nightmares. Sleep comes in shards. He jerks awake, tasting iron. Dreams drop him into a pit where he's both victim and jailer, winding the rack upon himself. Limbs tear, but rope never breaks, just stretches eternally. He wakes drenched, stumbles to a water barrel, plunges arms up to elbows, pretending the chill absolves. Tomorrow, he'll do the same to someone else. In towns where dungeons sat within bell towers, sunrise told guilt and redemption simultaneously. Peasants heard chimes and thanked saints they weren't inside. Henricus heard them as clock-in bells. Once he considered fleeing, join a crusade, vanish into foreign dust. But Crusader chronicles described tortures even worse. No escape. Pain travels with men. Yet he isn't omnipotent. Prisoners resist in inventive ways. One sang psalms until voice cords snapped. She mouthed lyrics silently afterward, unsettling everyone. Another bit through his own tongue, so speech became impossible. Henricus learned to gag to protect evidence, not to silence. And sometimes prisoners win in subtler battles. A forger condemned for treason etched microscopic curses on manacle rivets. Months later, Henricus developed an infection where iron rubbed his wrist. Coincidence? The healer shrugged. Superstitious guards started spitting 3 times before entering. Psychological warfare, medieval edition. But hold, let's ascend momentarily out of this gloom. We pass through the castle courtyard to the torturer's cottage. Inside, a wife ladles barley soup. Children chase a wooden hoop. They know father's job, but seldom ask details. Coins on the table feed them. Coins smell of blood, but gleam like any other. At festivals, the family stands apart. Society's price for dirty work. Henricus trades loneliness for security. And what of the larger machinery? Torture changed politics. A coerced confession could legitimize war, redistribute land, ignite heresy hunts, all from a room smaller than your bedroom. If power's foundation is narrative, then Henricus is ghostwriter to kings. When parchment bearing a wax seal proclaims he admitted conspiracy, nobody hears the click of thumbscrews behind every syllable. Our lamp sputters. Wax pools on floor like melted verdicts. Yet there's one device we haven't explored. The semblance chair. Wooden seat studded with short iron spikes. Victim sits. Stakes don't pierce deeply, just enough to forbid sleep. After 30 hours, delirium sets in. Truth blurs with hallucination. Modern psychologists call this micro-trauma insomnia. Medieval lawyers called it cleansing the soul through vigil. Henricus cleans spikes each morning. Rust slows the method. Clock check. We've marched deep tonight, but ink still flows, and we owe you the full 2,500-word descent. So linger a little longer. Consider water again, not the bucket trick, but the oubliette cistern. Some dungeons doubled as wells. Prisoners stood on platforms gradually lowered toward rising water. One chronicle notes a man who lasted 9 days, singing nautical ballads as water kissed his chin. Henricus admired such stamina, professional courtesy. He also studied anatomy inadvertently ahead of Renaissance doctors. By noticing which joints dislocated first, he mapped ligament strength decades before Vesalius drew his famous charts. Once, a scholar visited to witness an arthrologic procedure, a fancy phrase for leg twisting. The scholar fainted. Henricus jotted marginalia. Physicians of letters lack iron stomachs. Shade thrown, medieval style. Now, the jailer's helper arrives, a boy of 14. Henricus teaches him knot types, angle of pulley wheels, dosage of boiling oil for interrogation by scalding vapors, rarer, expensive. Mentorship ensures succession. Pain is a trade passed like masonry or baking. Apprentice eyes dart with morbid fascination. You sense history repeating, gears locking into place. But are there lines Henricus won't cross? Yes. He refuses to burn souls with molten lead, too quick, too destructive. Refuses to harm children, law usually spared them anyway. And he prays for every condemned before final ordeal, small islands of grace in a Red Sea. Enough for tonight. Your lungs sting from torch smoke. Mind reels with juxtaposed normalcy and horror. As we climb the spiral back toward candlelit safety, note the plaque near the exit. Truth is forged in the dark. Words etched by some long-gone warden. Truth, perhaps, but so is silence, trauma, legend. Remember Henricus, the keeper of pain? He's here too, hood lowered, standing beside a barrel of water to swab his tools if the magistrate calls for additional clarity. His work isn't finished just because the dungeon door closed. In most towns, the torturer doubled as stage manager on execution day. Ropes measured, knots inspected, blade edges tested. A sloppy public death disgraced everyone. Judge, priest, even baker selling meat pies to the crowd. Efficiency, precision, dignity of a sort, those were the watchwords, spoken through thin smiles. On the platform kneels today's convict, Sir Alduin of Linford, once a silver-spurred knight, now gaunt with 2 dislocated shoulders, courtesy of Henricus's strappado. The confession scroll, dangling from the clerk's leather satchel, accuses him of treason, sorcery, and bedding the king's falconer's wife. Honestly, any one would suffice. Alduin's hair is matted, his eyes febrile, but he holds a shred of knightly poise. He's rehearsing final words under his breath, lips shaping "not guilty," though he knows denial won't save him. Truth is cheap, theater is priceless. Speaking of theater, let's map the human geography around us. Front rail, merchants in fur-lined caps, eager for a moral lesson that justifies their profits. Second ring, apprentices allowed time off, wide-eyed, exchanging theories about how much blood a body holds. Beyond them, washerwomen, street urchins, toothless veterans, each hoping spectacle will warm the bones or distract the belly. It's carnival and sermon stitched together by fear. Behind the platform stands a heavy wooden post with iron staples, the whipping frame. Backup entertainment should the main act fail to thrill. To the left, a cauldron steams faintly. Pig fat melted down to grease the headsman's axe and slow rust, but the smell convinces newcomers it's boiling oil. Misdirection is part of the script. The more rumors swirl, the less likely anyone questions authority. Henricus steps up, offers the headsman, today a burly cooper moonlighting for coin, a whetstone. As steel kisses stone, a hush falls. This sound, scraping and rhythmic, cuts deeper than any sermon. Even birds stop singing. That's the genius of public punishment. It hijacks every sense. Visual horror, metallic taste on the wind, wood smoke itch in the eyes, and always that sound, steel reading its own obituary. The priest climbs stairs with deliberate gravity, black stole fluttering. He's here to save Alduin's soul, or at least to reassure the spectators that justice has heaven's stamp. He murmurs Latin, offers a wafer. Alduin tries to bow, but pain chains his shoulders. Priest presses communion to his tongue like sealing wax on a letter to God. Transaction complete. Now the herald, feathered hat, scroll unfurled. He reads charges in a voice polished for echo. Words bounce off ramparts. By order of our sovereign Lord, let it be known. The crowd murmurs approval in waves, each syllable stoking their moral superiority. You lean forward, heart skittering, realizing how quickly a single voice becomes thunder when multiplied by fear. Notice Henricus again. He's scanning faces, cataloging reactions. Is sympathy swelling? Is outrage waning? His livelihood depends on calibrating the emotional thermostat. Too much pity, and the magistrate might rethink torture quotas. Too little dread, and crime rates spike. Balance must be kept, and Henricus, ever the craftsman, adjusts like a smith at the forge. The headsman signals. Index finger along blade's edge. Ready. Two assistants guide Alduin forward. Help him kneel in the straw. Sunlight glints on wet hay. Dew clings to where the last execution bled out. Alduin's mouth twitches. Perhaps he's tasting the iron his own veins will soon release. He draws breath to speak, but hold that moment. We need to understand the choreography. Executions weren't mere finales. They were feedback loops. The state hurt you privately to get confession, then hurt you publicly to get compliance from everyone else. Some towns even raffled prime viewing spots, proceeds funding almshouses, philanthropy via terror. Parents lifted toddlers so their first memory of justice was a severed head, ensuring generational obedience. That's not justice. It's social programming in blood ink. Alduin speaks, "I die innocent of treason." Gasps rise. Henricus stiffens, not from guilt, but professional irritation. A last-minute denial undermines earlier confession transcripts. If people doubt the document's truth, they might question the need for torture. The system pollinates itself on belief. Headsman places hand on Alduin's shoulder, forcing him silent. Blade lifts. You feel an animal flinch in every spine around you. And then, impact. Quick, almost merciful. Almost. The head tumbles into straw, a crimson halo expanding. An assistant holds it aloft by hair for crowd display. Again, ritual. Children scream, elders cross themselves. Vendors hawk hot wine for cold nerves. Henricus exhales. Job done? Not yet. He approaches the platform, confirms pulse gone to satisfy legal form, dabs quill in fresh blood, marks X on execution ledger. Bureaucracy never sleeps. He whispers to the corpse, "May your pain end here." Perhaps reflex, perhaps remorse. Then he signals apprentices to clean the block. Lye, water, handful of straw. Wipe, scrub, scatter. Reset stage for next month. We drift with the dispersing crowd. Listen to the chatter. Did you see his eyes blink? They say heads remain conscious for a heartbeat. Horror rebranded as trivia. Trauma processed into gossip. Something to chew with supper bread. Social media of its era. But what about us? Dragging this imagery home in our skulls. There were medieval citizens who refused to watch executions, dubbed pity fools by neighbors. They believed witnessing cruelty forged cruelty in return. Some carved small wooden saints, placed them over hearths, hoping sanctity would filter out echoes of screams. Others composed lullabies referencing blood to desensitize children early, dark but practical. Night approaches again. Henricus heads for tavern backside entrance. Owners serve him after hours. Public patrons might riot if they saw him sipping ale. He sits alone, mug in hand, staring at grain pattern on table as if reading sin lines. Eventually, he trudges home. His wife mends stockings by rushlight. She pretends not to smell iron. In bed, he lies rigid, unable to turn, thanks to phantom aches mirroring those he inflicts. Sleep steals him anyway. Exhaustion is stronger than conscience. Dreamscape. He's on the scaffold, but roles reversed. Townsfolk tighten his bonds, ask why he tormented them. He tries to explain duty, but his tongue turns to parchment, words unreadable. He wakes before blade descends. Same dream, countless nights. Let's widen lens. Across Europe, torture protocols diverged. Italian city-states favored strappado and water cure. German lands innovated with spider, an iron cage shaped like a question mark, suspending victims outdoors for weather to finish. French courts loved psychological twists, showing instruments first, promising mercy for confession, then breaking promise. English authorities pretended torture didn't exist, using royal prerogative to sidestep common law. But the script remained, private pain to produce public order. During plague years, interrogation rooms became incubators. Torturers died in droves from close contact with infected suspects. Some jurisdictions offered hazard pay, extra loaf per day, exemption from certain taxes. Henricus once survived a fever that killed his apprentice. Guilt mingled with relief. Hazard pay meant more bread for his own children, but at what cost? A quick detour. Tools update. You've seen racks and thumb screws. Meet the Spanish donkey. A wedge-shaped beam victims straddled while weights tied to ankles forced flesh downward. In colder climates, they applied it near hearths. Warmth softened tissue, prolonging agony. Torturers weren't sadists by job description. They were engineers optimizing stimulus. Horrifying? Absolutely. But like modern labs adjusting variables, they recorded results meticulously. Pain science without anesthesia. Speaking of science, early surgeons sometimes consulted torturers for skeletal knowledge. How far can humerus rotate before dislocation? torturers answers empirically. Thus, medicine advanced through suffering. A grim equation. Every anatomical diagram we admire owes a debt to unknown screams. Back to Henricus's ledger. Tomorrow lists 3 minor cases: thievery, heresy rumor, a midwife accused of moonlit curses. Lesser crimes call for lighter touch, maybe the chair of spikes or a good territory tour, parading prisoner through streets in iron mask. Shame can do what iron sometimes can't, and if confession comes quick, the court might commute sentence to branding or banishment. Branding irons. They fascinate me. Each city had unique emblem: cross, fleur-de-lis, wolf's head, a human passport of pain. Imagine job hunting with a branded cheek. No resume could erase that imprint. Social media scars, medieval edition. We're nearing our word count marathon, but there's one more stop: archives. Follow me past dust-heavy shelves. Here lie confession books, sealed with red silk. Scholars today analyze ink chemistry, discovering telltale tremors in pen strokes, micro zigzags where hand spasmed under agony. They digitize these fibers of fear, preserving suffering in pixels. Maybe centuries from now, someone will parse our podcast transcripts for hidden shivers. Lantern's gutter. It's time to climb back to safer realms. As we exit the castle gate, listen. The crowd's chatter already morphs into legend. Alduin's head blinked thrice, they insist. By next market day, it'll be 5. Memory and myth intertwine like vines over gallows. If your pulse still hammers, breathe. Pour a mug of something warm. Remember, studying darkness can inoculate us against repeating it if we keep empathy alive. Drop your thoughts below. Does public punishment in digital age echo that scaffold? Do viral shaming posts mirror medieval crowds? I crave your insights. Slip behind the brazier with me, mind the sparks, and keep your cloak low. That guard yawning by the portcullis? We just bribed his cousin. Tonight the castle's gut grows its own conspiracy, and you're standing at the very edge of it. Before we vanish down yet another stair that doesn't exist on the royal blueprints, smash that like button to confuse the algorithm guards, and scrawl "Shadow Crew reporting in" down in the comments so I know who slipped through the bars with us. Ready? Lantern shutters closed, hearts open, down we go. The stones sweat midnight here. You feel it, right? Damp breathing through mortar joints, carrying every whisper the dungeons ever swallowed. Most inmates think walls merely echo. Rebels know walls remember. That's why our little network of scribes and healers uses coded knocks. 3 soft, 2 hard, pause, 1 soft. It's the pattern no rat could replicate with its claws, the rhythm Henricus never learned to question. We call ourselves the Candlemen, because one flame passed hand to hand can burn a ledger, a rope, or a lie. Our immediate mission: extract Sister Elodia, the midwife accused of night witchery, before Sunrise Tribunal reduces her to a cautionary bonfire. She's locked 2 levels below where Sir Alduin met his dawn, shackled to a wall ring chilled by winter water sluiced through torture drains. The magistrate thinks a public whipping will suffice, but Henricus, ever thorough, has already scheduled her pre-hearing clarification. That's code for thumb screws, then strappado if she won't name accomplices who don't exist. We have 8 hours, less if Henricus gets restless. First obstacle, the records annex. Every cell key here matches an iron docket hung beside parchment notes. Steal the key and leave no gap? Impossible. Gaps get spotted. So our forger, old Janik, has cast duplicate blanks in pewter dipped in lampblack to mimic fresh rust. Swap originals, lock cabinet, no alarm. He does it with fingertip grace while reciting bits of Psalm 91 under his breath. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night. Comforting if you ignore that he's reciting inside a terror by night. Second obstacle, the Hound. The castle keeps one lean mastiff named Morbus, trained to scent prisoner leather and sweat. We carry cloths soaked in stable urine to overwhelm his nose. Cruel? Maybe, but Morbus still eats scraps we toss later in gratitude. Better a confused dog than a gutted rescuer. Tonight, the beast is leashed by the kitchen door, tongue lolling, eyes half closed from the cook's leftover ale. We drift past, dropping a slice of salt pork. Morbus chooses pork over duty, proof that bribery works on more species than human. Down spiral stairs. Remember, always clockwise descent in castles built by right-handed masons. That means your sword arm, if you had one, is cramped by the inner wall, perfect for defenders above. For us, it means watch your footing. Each tread dips half an inch where centuries of panic wore grooves. At the landing, a sconce flickers. We count breaths, then Janik blows it out. Darkness hugs us like a co-conspirator. Here's where Candleman ingenuity shines, literally. We uncap beetle glow jars, tiny lamps filled with crushed firefly thoraxes and goose fat. Sickly green, but enough to pick locks without broadcasting beams. 2 cells ahead, we hear a rasping cough. Alodia. She's singing, amazingly, an old cradle hymn to keep despair at bay. Hush thee quiet, hush thee still. Moon will guard the windowsill. Her voice is ragged but steady, which is more than I can say for my pulse. Key in, turn. Hinge creaks, too loud, we freeze. Footsteps overhead, only the pop of an overstoked hearth. Proceed. Alodia looks up. Her wrists, purple cord bruised, tremble as she almost mistakes us for new tormentors. A quick Candleman sign, thumb to heart, palm open, tells her hope isn't just a Saint's Day rumor. While Janik files chain rivets, let's pan back. Clandestine rescues weren't fairy tale anomalies. They were counter-pressure valves preventing tyranny from imploding under its own paranoia. Guilds saved valuable craftsmen. Monasteries smuggled scholars. Midwives like Alodia safeguarded generations in womb. Every liberation seeded whispers that power could be outfoxed, and whispers, my friend, sprout revolutions. Chains off, she sways. We feed her honey water spiked with poppy to dull pain but keep wits. There's no heroism in dragging a fainting rescuee through corridors. She gulps, grimaces, nods gratitude. Now, reverse route? Too predictive. Instead, we cut across the oubliette catwalk. Yes, the vertical pit where political prisoners rotted unseen. It stinks of mildew and regret. But there's a forgotten ventilation duct, big enough if you exhale faith. We'd crawl single file to the armory antechamber, but tonight, a trickle of meltwater turned the shaft into a gutter. New plan, The corpse chute. Every dungeon disposes waste downward, but bodies, especially plague suspects, often slide straight to the charnel yard beyond walls. The chute is steep, caked with lime, theoretically sealed by an iron flap outside. Janek learned last winter that rust froze the hinge half open. We lower a rope, anchor to a rack's support beam, irony acknowledged, and descend feet first. Lime burns eyes, but speed matters more than comfort. We emerge in the burial trench behind herb gardens. Moonlight silver plates dormant rosemary bushes. Frost crusts piles of discarded fetters. No sentries. They trust walls and myths to shield their shame. From here, smuggler carts rumble pre-dawn to deliver firewood. We'll tuck Alodia under sacks, bribe Carter with a purse stuffed not with coin, but with signed debt pardons stolen from magistrate's desk. Paper can ransom loyalty better than gold. Evidence destroyed, conscience bought. Before we load her, Alodia clutches my sleeve. Another prisoner, a boy, 16 for poaching, cell by the well shaft, please. Exfiltration protocols say stick to objectives, but Candlemen hearts are tragically elastic. Decision weighs heavy. Risk all for one more spark? You vote with your silence. I see it in your eyes. We go back. Minutes later, keys rattle again. The boy, Garrett, staggers out, shackles still on ankles. No time to file. We improvise manacles into a kind of hobble so he can shuffle. Returning to chute could alert patrol if they notice missing bodies. Instead, we slip through herb garden gate into orchard. Snow crunches underfoot. At far wall, smugglers have left rope ladder. One of our encoded messages appeared on tavern door last week. A painted pair split by arrow. Orchard, ladders, tonight. Climb, drop, vanish into tree shadow beyond torchlight range. Behind us, first bell for matins tolls. Dawn's bruise spreads in east. Henricus will discover empty cell, swapped keys, ledger ink still wet. His dream reversed into waking nightmare. But we are already threading forest paths towards safe houses where nuns brew valerian tea for nightmares like his. Pause here. Breathe the pine needle cold. Freedom is fragile. Tomorrow we may fall. Yet every rescued soul becomes another Candleman, doubling resistance. That arithmetic scares regimes more than any sword. Rain arrived before dawn, thin as harp strings, yet cold enough to turn breath into steam halos. We sheltered beneath a yew outside the old leper chapel, where Candleman Quartermaster Damian waited with a saddlebag of disguises that smelled of sheep lanolin and coriander. Alodia's wrists were salved, Jarrett's ankle fetters padded with wool, and still they shivered more from dread than damp. Freedom is a drafty cloak its first hour. Damian's primary delivery, though, wasn't fabric. He unrolled 3 calfskin sheets, court summonses, freshly inked and dangerously blank at the signature lines. Stole them while the clerk snoozed, he murmured. Ink barely dry. We can write fate on them before the judge does. Forged papers are quieter than blades. You slip them through a door and watch entire corridors rearrange themselves. Our target tonight sat less in stone than in parchment, the torture ledger. Henricus keeps it inside the Citadel Chancery, locked behind a wrought iron grill where only his seal can free it. Every confession coerced, every thumbscrew twist, itemized like market fish. Once a name stains a page, guilt is assumed eternal. Tear out the pages, you erase guilt. Substitute pages, you redirect it. The ledger is tyranny's spine. To snap it, we'd need quills as sharp as daggers. First obstacle, the clerks. 5 of them, butter-pale men who dip quills while guards dip lashes. They don't torture. They confirm torture happened within lawful ratio of pain. That euphemism alone could gag a goat. They work by candle rack, which we can sabotage. Rosemary stems, when dried and braided into wicks, pop sparks that shower wax like hot hail. One stray ember lands on accounts, panic follows. While Damian and I hashed sabotage timings, Elodia surprised us. "Let me in." She flexed her bandaged fingers. "I was scribe before midwife. They'll dismiss a limping nun copying psalms in the corner." Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it asks for parchment. Garrett volunteered too, but we needed him outside, relaying knocks. Newly freed birds best avoid recages. Plan unfurled thus. Damian enters as charcoal merchant with sample sticks. He'll gift the clerks complimentary scented candles, rosemary wicks. Elodia, in novice habit, offers to copy baptism lists delayed by plague burials. The head clerk aches for backlog relief. I pose as messenger, bearing sealed inquest from city council, demanding ledger references. Seals forged from softened beeswax, stamped with stolen ring. Risky, yet clerk vanity loves civic attention. Meanwhile, candlemen on the roof will test a new toy. Ink eaters. Goose feathers dipped in vinegar solution wrapped around clay weights. Drop through chimney flues, burst on contact, ink bleeds unreadable. Redundancy is liberation's twin. Afternoon bells struck none too triumphant chords as we approached West Gate. The rain had stopped, leaving courtyard mud slick as butcher fat. Guards inspected cartwheels. Muddy spokes spread like cracked ribs. Damian waved his charcoal bundles. "For the scribe fires, smoke so clean your ladyship could breathe it," he boasted. His accent, part merchant brag, part pilgrim humility, always convinced men who feared taxes more than invasion. Inside Chancery, the air smelled of stale tallow, damp vellum, and frustration. Scroll towers leaned like drunken soldiers. The head clerk, Master Reinald, had pince-nez lodged halfway down a nose that had never met sunlight. Damian's candles charmed him instantly. He chose the fattest, sniffed, declared the aroma divine, unaware rosemary would spit flame later like a campfire curse. Enter Elodia, hood low, posture meek. "Permission to copy sacramental registers, good sir," she whispered. Her bruised wrists hid beneath sleeves, but pain quivered her script. Reinald eyed her skeptically, then remembered his backlog. Quills were placed in her trembling hands. She glided to a side lectern, eyes absorbing layout, wax seal drawers, key hooks. Spycraft disguised as servitude. Time for my cue. I stepped through with rain-specked cloak, carrying the forged inquest scroll. Bowed. Council of Aldermen requires torture expenditure tallies for audit. Spoke the phrase as though it bored me. Bureaucrats love nothing more than imposing boredom on others. Reinhold fussed, flustered by sudden accountability. "Impossible by dusk," he squeaked. "We need the ledger, but Henricus retains it." I pretended indifference, tapping the scroll. "Deadline is no mother's caress." Under breath, I muttered Candleman code. "Ink sinks walls." Elodia heard. She responded with a subtle scrape of quill. Affirm. Reinhold dispatched junior clerks to fetch red wax keys kept in the inner treasury. Perfect. Fewer eyes now. Damian eased out, ostensibly to collect more charcoal, truly to signal roof team. Timing, 600 heartbeats until sparks. While we waited, Elodia copied registers with such speed, Reinhold forgot to supervise. She then reached for the ledger cubby, needing format reference. Ledger came out heavy as sin. She flipped pages, confessions, accusations, each name like a pulse in ink. Among them, Garrett's older brother, executed last winter. Elodia's eyes watered, but pen never shook. She replaced page markers with Candleman duplicates, each subtly altered, incriminating noble henchmen instead of beggars, forging pardons for midwives, erasing mention of Candlemen altogether. Clerks returned, keys clacking. Reinhold unlocked ledger, trusting Elodia's arrangement. He began summarizing accounts onto parchment for my audit. Every false name he copied became official. The ledger's backup in Henricus's study would now contradict the Chancery copy. Bureaucratic chaos seeds sown. Up on roof, first spark popped. Candles flared, shooting rosemary embers onto piles of waste paper. Reinhold shrieked, clerks scrambled, stamping at fires. Amid smoke, Elodia slid perfected pages under her robe. I tucked audit scroll into satchel. Damien burst in again, shouting about defective wicks, guiding us out as flames devoured ink-stained histories. In courtyard, alarm bells rang. Bucket chains formed. Perfect distraction to exit gatehouse. Guards stopped us. Protocol. Damien thrust remaining candles toward them. "Free stock, no charge. Careful, they spit." Laughter diffused suspicion. They let us pass. At Rendezvous Barn outside city walls, candlemen regrouped. Roof team, soot-smudged but grinning, reported ledger chimney black with diluted ink. The ink-eaters vectored like plague of bureaucracy. 2 copies, one burned, one bled. Our forged edition now sole authentic record. Yet victory births vengeance. Henricus would smell subterfuge before sunrise. He'd scour quarters, question bathhouse attendants, beat stable boys. He'd assume inside help. Elodia's absence already prickled his paranoia. He'd tighten torture schedules, no doubt devising new pains to extract truth about falsehood. Thus, next phase, weaponize the very manuals that taught Henricus. Torture treatises, Practica Torturae, De Questionibus, list limits, number of rack turns, minutes between waterboarding cycles. Henricus rarely obeyed, but higher courts worship legalities. If we forged annotations into his personal copy, notes flaunting how he delighted in exceeding limits, we could hand them to the royal legate due next month for a civic inspection. Nothing slays a butcher like a signature on his own recipe. For that, we needed the treatise stored in Henricus's private library, a tower chamber lined with iron-clamped books he treats more tenderly than prisoners. Tower sits above the torture wing, accessed by spiral stair guarded day and night. Candlemen lacked infiltration map. Until Garrett spoke. My cousin scrubs that stairwell. She steals moments to read love poetry hidden in broom handle. Hope arrives wearing rags. Plan evolved. Embed Garrett's cousin as courier delivering revised audit. Slip treatise out for reference. Swap forged margin notes, return. But forging Henricus's hand requires artistry. Enter Faye, our best calligrapher, who can imitate signatures after glimpsing them once. She agreed, though forging horrors shook her pacifist soul. Ink is my blade, she sighed, tying hair with ribbon dipped in lavender to quell dungeon stench. Meanwhile, Damian prepped safe houses. Henricus's retaliation likely targeted midwives, scribes, charcoal merchants, anyone intersecting tonight's chaos. Candlemen cells would scatter, some to forest hermitages, others disguised as pilgrims toward Shrine of St. Guthlac. We memorize rendezvous dates like lovers memorizing tryst hours. Before splitting, we unrolled the rescued ledger pages by lantern. Names once doomed, now liberated in ink. Among them, Margot the brewer, Tomas the bell ringer, a dozen more. Eladia traced each letter, tears carving tracks in soot on her cheeks. Garrett whispered, "Ink saved more than swords ever did." We pressed the seals, parchment crackled, future rewritten. In every rebellion, there's a moment when survival shifts into offense. Tonight, we stepped across that line. We no longer merely rescue. We indict oppressors with their own pens. By dawn, rumors will flutter. Clerks blame candles, guards blame clerks, magistrate blames Henricus. When power spends energy devouring itself, it has little left to chase shadows. Rain restarted. Steady, cleansing blood someone else might have spilled. We shared stale rye crusts, each bite gritty with ash, yet sweetest bread I've known. Elodia raised crust like communion. To pages unburned, she toasted. We answered, to voices unbroken. Rain drummed approval. Mist curls along the moat tonight, ghosting over the water like ink dropped in milk. From this outer battlement, we see the torture tower's lanterns flicker, a string of jaundiced fireflies marking Henricus's private lair. Somewhere inside, his treasured Practica Torturae rests on a walnut shelf, clasped in tooled iron. With that book and a forged confession in his own hand, we won't just rescue souls, we'll throttle the system that swallows them. Faye, our calligrapher, kneels beside me on the wall walk. Moonlight splashes silver across her knife-thin quills. I can mimic every flourish, she whispers, but I need an hour alone with the pages. She tucks a vial of ochre-tinted ink into her sleeve. The color matches Henricus's favored pigment, extracted from clay beds near his birth village. Authenticity starts in the dirt. Garrett's cousin, Lenka, emerges from a sallyport below, broom tucked under one arm, bucket under the other. She signals with a twitch of her wrist, 3 quick, 1 long, that the stairwell landing is clear. She'll feign scrubbing until we pass. Timing is everything. A late patrol marches this route on the half hour. Our window gapes 11 minutes wide, then snaps shut. Damian, disguised tonight as a minor bailiff, carries the counterfeit charter from the royal legate demanding the tower's torture statistics. A delicious irony. We fastened the legate's stolen wax seal with a prayer and a dash of honey to mimic age. Alodia hides beneath his cloak's folds, bruises camouflaged by charcoal dust. She'll slip inside the library as assistant notary, present to tally pains as though they were barley sacks. Me? I'm the lamplighter, wick snuffer in one hand, ladder in the other. Plausible reason to stand near shelves, and convenient vantage to drop forged margin notes between cracks in the medical diagrams. If anyone asks why a lamplighter quotes Cicero, I'll say I learned my Latin from soot stains in cathedral vaulting. Few interrogators examine a lie if it flatters their sense of superiority. But the roof team reports a wrinkle. Henricus hasn't left for his midnight wine. Word is he's stewing in his study, waiting for a courier rumored to carry fresh accusations. That courier, of course, doesn't exist. Just one of Damian's rumors released in the market square at dawn. So the spider stays in his web, pacing. Good. Spiders can be lured. Alodia produces a small vial, vinegar steeped in nettle leaves. Add this to his brazier. Acrid smoke, he'll open windows and leave. The plan shifts, the way rivers shift when beavers meddle. Subtle, noisy, unavoidable. Under the arch with mottled lichen, we enter the tower's base. The air feels thicker, as if every confession ever breathed here refuses to leave. Lenka is hunched on the top step, scrubbing non-existent grime. She hums a bawdy tavern tune, signaling no danger. Drops her bucket with theatrical clank, water splashing. "Careful, sirs, floor slick," she murmurs. Her wink could slice rope. We ascend the spiral. Stone steps narrow, defensive architecture ensuring climbers expose more of their torso to defenders above. Lenka slips behind, mopping any trace of our grime. I count niches along the wall, remembering which hold the murder holes and crossbow loops. Lore says the original architect demanded extra arrow slits to avenge a cousin lost to rebels. Irony thickens tonight. Second landing. A thin door bound in brass. On it, Henricus has carved his motto, Veritas per cruciatum, truth through torment. Faye exhales. Truth through quill, she corrects under her breath. Damian knocks. A gaunt clerk opens, eyes rimmed red, nose scabbed from snuff. He stares at the leaded seal like a starving dog at butcher scraps. Master Henricus is indisposed, he croaks. Damian feigns affront. Not more indisposed than the crown if these ledgers aren't verified. He shoves the scroll. The clerk's hands tremble. Bureaucrats fear seals like peasants fear storms. We're waved through. Inside, the library unfolds in dusty halos of lamplight. Manuscripts climb walls, spines cracked, corners dog-eared by impatience. Torture instruments, miniature prototypes, sit on velvet pedestals. Pocket racks, thumb wrenches, even a silver model of the Iron Maiden. Proof the master prizes artistry as much as agony. Henricus himself slouches by the hearth, nose buried in parchment, goblet of wine untouched. His gray hair droops like cobweb. Iron keys jangle at his waist. He looks up with reptile calm. "The legate's sudden diligence surprises me," he says. His voice grates like a file on bone. Damian bows. "Plague of heresy, sire. Numbers must match, or heads will." Henricus snorts, but wine-lazy eyes flick to the seal. "Very well. Which pages?" He barks at the clerk. They shuffle to shelves. Faye drifts to a lectern, spreading charters. Elodia watches Henricus, waiting for chance. "My cue. I lug the ladder to the sconce over the hearth. Pretend to trim the wick, but really I release 2 drops of nettle vinegar down the chimney pipe. Flames sizzle, smoke curls, pungent, eye-watering. Henricus waves his hand, curses. He unlatches a window, allowing frigid air to rush like a liberated prisoner. "I'll fetch another cask," he mutters, handing his keys to the clerk with a lazy order. "Assist these quill worms." Then he slips out into the corridor, seeking fresher fire. Door clicks. We freeze, hearing his receding boots. Stage belongs to us now. Elodia glides to the torture treatise shelf. The book's clasp squeals. She passes it to Faye, who opens to the margins. Previous scrawlings of pain metrics and artistry. Faye's fingers dance, a swan possessing a dagger. She inks new notes. Prolonged dislocation yields confession within 9 turns, 7 if the victim is weaned on fear of fire. Water cure more amusing when icy. Observe chattering teeth for tempo. Children's screams accelerate women's confessions. Consider adjacent cells. Blecker than midnight sin, each sentence. Perfect mimicry of Henricus's curved serif, his telltale long crosses on T. She even adds blotches to match his impatient pen lifts, then blows gently to dry. I slip extra sheets between folios, lists of bribes, names of nobles whose sins became scapegoats, evidence of graft. When the legate reads, moral outrage armed with royal authority will chain Henricus to his own rack. We must not linger. Damian pretends to review numbers. I snuff lamp number 2, feigning hazard. Smoke thickens. The clerk coughs, eyes watering. "Maybe step outside, good man," Damian suggests. "We'll finish tallies." The clerk, eager for breath, bolts. Door closes. Now to return the book. But Elodia pauses, scanning indices. "Look," she points to a loose scrap tucked behind the back cover. A map. Corridors of a subcellar unknown even to candlemen. Marked, Speculum Mortis, the mirror of death. A secret chamber? Faye's voice trembles. Perhaps experimental space. If true, survivors, if any, may still be chained there. Mission multiplies. We pocket the map. Boots clatter in hallway. Henricus returning. Time folds inward. We shelve treatise, tidy scripts, wipe fingerprints with hem soaked in vinegar. Smoke still drifts. Henricus bursts in, nostrils flaring. He swats fumes, mutters about damp wood, then seizes the treatise, locking clasp with audible click. "Out," he orders. "No counting past primes." Damian bows, shepherds us towards stairs. We descend. Lenka meets us midway, feigning frustration about mop water. She eyes the satchel. Mission success? Faye nods. A flicker of hope passes like candlelight down eyes. But victory grows thorns fast. At courtyard, horns blare, alarm. A guard shouts about missing pages from Chamber of Inquiry. Our ledger theft, discovered earlier, now roars back like a wounded boar. Gates slam, search parties deploy. Our exit path, North Sallyport, is barred. Damian, thinking sideways, grabs a torch from wall bracket. "Lamplighter's missed inspection," he bellows, adopting a furious bailiff tone. Guards blink, unsure. He points at me. "This one's incompetent, left wicks untrimmed. We must report to quartermaster now." The guard captain hesitates. Pride craves order more than suspicion. He waves us through, but only as far as parade ground, where lists of pass holders must be signed. Ink again. Tables under awnings, quills in inkwells, torches guttering in wind. Officers compare rosters. They'll see no bailiff entry. We need distraction times 2. Elodia fakes a faint. She crumples, moaning about smoke inhalation. While officers circle, Garrett, hiding in shadow earlier, slides among record books, dribbling lamp oil across rosters. He tips a candle. Pages flare. Officers shout, scramble to stamp fire. Amid chaos, we guide Elodia to supply wagon loaded with straw for stable. We burrow inside, suffocating in dusty sweetness as wheels rumble out gate disguised as emergency forage run. Outside walls, freedom tastes like horse sweat and wet straw. After half-mile, we dismount into hedgerow, coughing. Garrett suggests splitting. Smaller groups vanish easier. Faye and I take the treatise toward the Abbey of St. Basil, where sympathetic monks will copy forged annotations for redundancy. Damian and Lenka lead Elodia and Garrett to Riverside Safe House. Dawn smudges sky with bruised lavender. Before we part, we unroll the hidden map again. Lines snake downward from Torture Wing to the castle crypt and beyond, into bedrock. If prisoners languish there, liberation duty calls. We vow, tomorrow night we breach Speculum Mortis. Garrett clenches fettered ankle. "We finish what we started," he whispers. Faye tucks treatise under cloak. Rain begins again, heavier now. "Ink will run," she warns. I let droplets spatter the outside. Inside, pages sleep in oilcloth. We trek mud paths, each heartbeat echoing tower bells behind us. Hours later, inside Abbey scriptorium, we perch beneath stained glass saints depicted with quills and scrolls, propaganda from a gentler century. Brother Marcus, archivist, unfurls the treatise, eyes widening at grotesque illustrations. "Sin documented," he murmurs. He prepares to transcribe. Faye guides his strokes, marking each forged cruelty. Evidence multiplies like seeds on wind. While ink dries, he offers us oat bread and fig wine. My stomach clenches, not hunger, but dread. We exposed ourselves to Henricus's glare. By dusk, he'll unleash dragnets across Shire. Candlemen codes must change. Marcus volunteers Abbey bells as signal. 3 slow tolls at non-canonical hour means safe passage. Vespers tomorrow will tell. Suddenly, hoofbeats thunder outside cloister. We peer through shutter. Riders in black liveries, Henricus's men, demand entry. They claim pursuit of ledger thieves. Marcus straightens. Sanctuary holds, he says, but his eyes betray uncertainty. The Abbey's charter defends scribes, yet money can tip scales. Faye and I retreat behind tapestry of Martyr Lawrence, slip into hidden stair to crypt. Cold air rises from bones of centuries. Marcus delays riders with records checks. Below, we weave among sarcophagi. Marble faces eroded, some missing noses. Candles hiss. We find narrow postern door opening onto herb garden wall. Overgrown ivy conceals latch. We push. Emerges into dawn drizzle. Escape continues. Half-mile east, we find cottage of widow Imke, candleman sympathizer who distills lavender oil. She hides us in attic smelling of dried roses. From crack we watch castle silhouette, watch smoke plumes. Henricus, perhaps, burning forged pages, unaware originals sit here duplicating. 2 ravens land on roof beam, Viking omen of thought and memory. They'll carry word. Night falls again. Mission 2. Speculum Mortis. Damian reconvenes at cottage with Alodia, Garrett, Lenka. They arrived via wine barge, unseen. Garrett bears blacksmith file, fetters gone. Alodia carries willow bark salve, though bruises deepened. Resolve deeper. We study map. Entrance lies through catacomb niche behind saint statue. Key carved from bone required. Where to get bone key? Alodia recalls ossuary beneath infirmary chapel. Skulls threaded on wire, femurs stacked like logs. Among display, reliquary finger rumored to unlock martyr's box. If finger bone fits, we have ticket. Plan seeds. Garrett and Lenka slip into infirmary during Compline prayers. They borrow reliquary digit, carve notches. Meanwhile, Faye and I craft cover identities as gravediggers hauling plague corpses. Damian prints counterfeit burial permits. Alarms still blaring inside castle, but plague fear outranks manhunt. Guards shy from carts draped in deathcloth. But that's tomorrow's labyrinth. For tonight, we write letters to ourselves, small vows in cipher. Ink remembers. Ink redeems. I slide mine into crack under floorboard, payment for ghosts sheltering us. Faye pours lavender oil on candle plate, scent of courage. We sleep in shifts, daggers under straw mattress, eyes staring at rafters where spider webs tremble like nervous harpstrings. Dreams swim with images, pages screaming as they burn. Henricus's quill scratching sin. Prisoners behind hidden walls banging for dawn that never comes. I wake, sweating. Outside, wolves howl. Sounds like tortured men? Perhaps conscience. Morning. Crow call. We rise. Damian twirls mustache, grins. Danger suits him. Alodia tightens cloak. Garrett shoulders shovel. Faye slips forged annotations copies into waxed satchel ready for legate. Before we set out, I turn to you, the silent conspirer behind the screen. Type in the comments which disguise would you choose for the next infiltration? Gravedigger, monk, or ratcatcher? Your answer might twist our path. And subscribe. Each new subscriber is one extra set of eyes spotting patrols. Lanterns sway above the Abbey garden, splattering gold tremors across frost-silvered sage. Dawn has not yet bled over the hills, and the tower's silhouette still looms like a severed rook piece on the board of night. We have 6 hours until henchmen return for their routine inventory. If Speculum Mortis isn't empty by then, its occupants never leave. Garrett spreads the smuggled map across a mossy tombstone. His finger traces the spine of the tower, down past dungeon level into that uncharted cavity where the architect scribbled only a Latin warning: Descende et muta caro in umbram. Descend, and flesh becomes shadow. Damien snorts. Poetic way to say dead men stay dead. Elodia winces, still nursing bruises beneath her half-healed ribs. She unwraps the reliquary finger they harvested, milky bone polished smooth by centuries of pilgrim kisses. Faye has carved tiny row pins along its joint to match the lock bitted on our map. She turns the relic under moonlight. Saint or sinner, tonight it opens hell's pantry. I slip my lamplighter coat over peasant rags. The hood still reeks of wax and nettle smoke, but it masks my face and holds 3 vials: powdered lime, crushed poppy, and dragon's blood resin. Each a different persuasion should diplomacy fail. The Abbey bells will toll at matins, misaligned by Brother Marcus to mask our first breach. After that, silence will be both ally and predator. Lenka emerges from henhouse with 2 burlap sacks, feathers leaking from seams. Chickens, she grins. Guards fear plague. They fear demons more. Toss a screeching rooster into an echoing corridor, they'll swear the damned are escaping. She hands me one. The bird's heart drums frantic Morse code against my palm. Our cart rattles down the dew-slick path, piled high with firewood and straw mattress rolls. To the world, we're corpse collectors repurposing straw for mass graves. Beneath the straw, rope ladder, pry bar, wax seals, spare cloaks, and that forged ledger with Henricus's new incriminating margins. Closer to the bottom, a reed cage, 3 rats caught in Abbey bakery. They'll play their wretched part later. Before the gatehouse, patrols mutter about missing ledgers, burned rosters, and that legate emissary who vanished like smoke. They hold torches away from our cart, noses stuffed with cloth against plague. Damien embraces the rumor, brandishing counterfeit burial pass. He sprinkles vinegar across straw, intensifying sour stink. The captain recoils, salutes, waves us through. We trundle into lower yard as sunrise ignites arrow slits in citadel wall, thin, bloodshot eyes opening. A stable boy yawns, leads shivering donkey to watering trough. Smiths stoke forges, sending sparks like distressed fireflies. Ordinary morning, except for the miasma of alarm thickening like stew. We park beside refuse pit behind infirmary chapel. Garrett and Lenka vanish inside, seeking ossuary access to steal stand-in bones. Eventually, Henricus will inventory relics and discover one missing. Replacing with look-alike ensures we're ghosts, not thieves. Elodia, Faye and I shoulder mattress rolls and slip into infirmary's rear corridor. Sick beds line walls, monks chanting low. Plague ward reopened last month after 3 villagers coughed blood. Perfect cover. We approach a locked grate where catacomb stairs descend beneath chancel. Elodia fits bone key in rusted wards. Click, and stone groans open. Smell of damp lime dust and centuries of unsaid prayers blasts our faces. We douse lantern glass, leaving bare wick glow. Steps spiral tighter than words on confession parchment. Far below, a pigeon coos, lost, half mad. Landing. A vaulted hall ribbed like whale underbelly. Skulls mortar-stacked into walls, eye sockets staring in permanent cross-examination. At far end, a slab of obsidian stands upright, mirror polished, no frame, tall as a door. Spell of stillness grips us. Faye inches forward. Our reflections shimmer in black glass but distort. The eyes sink, mouths stretch, bones appear beneath skin. Speculum mortis, she whispers. Mirror of death indeed. Base of mirror reveals lock plate. Socket shaped like finger bone. Elodia inserts relic. Mechanism moans open like a jaw, and with sluggish hiss, the obelisk pivots, revealing passage lit only by glowworms in cracks. Cold gust smells of iron and old straw mixed with something sweeter. Lavender? No, rose oil, used by torturers to mask stench of ordeal. We slide inside. Mirror closes behind, seal swallowing last crumb of light. Heartbeats pound like drums of war. We reach for tinderbox. Strike. Flame reveals corridor lined by cages no larger than chimneys. Inside, shapes curled in death, others stirring weakly. 2 men, ribs poking through flesh, blink at light as if blinded. One coughs, voice shredded. Are we angels or devils? Elodia kneels, wraps blanket, pours water from skin. I count 8 prisoners alive, 5 beyond rescue, 3 bones only. Name rolls begin. A scholar accused of translating forbidden Arabic treatise. A midwife blamed for stillbirth. A merchant who refused bribe for false testimony. Henricus's private collection. Victims too inconvenient for public record, so he hid them. Their existence alone will dismantle him. We cut shackles with pry bar, splint broken limbs. Faye scribes each name, wound, date, using Henricus's own ledgers we brought. Evidence embedded. But we're not alone. Metal grates somewhere ahead. Squeak of wheel on track. Lantern bobbing. Voices argue. Henricus himself, accompanied by 2 halberdiers, returning to examine. Maybe transfer prisoners before our forged evidence erupts. Time compresses. I hand Rooster to Damian. He left to circle corridor earlier. Right now, he shoves Bird through wall grate toward approaching lantern. Rooster screeches, wings clatter cages, echo magnified devilishly. Guards shout, Catherine wheels of fear. One drops lantern. It bursts, flames licking straw. Panic spreads. Prisoners wail. Smoke floods low tunnel. Henricus yells orders, voice cracking. We exploit chaos. Faye flings powdered lime into corridor. White cloud blinds guards, stings eyes. Lenka, rejoined with bone-forged keys, swings cudgel, cracks helm of nearest soldier. Garrett hauls merchant on his back toward mirror. Henricus glimpses us. Recognition dawns like plague boil. He lunges, pull dagger. Elodia, with surgeon precision, flicks dragon's blood resin into still flaming straw. Blue smoke coils, choking. Henricus stumbles, hacking. We shepherd prisoners through mirror threshold. But lock now jammed from heat warp. Finger key sticks halfway. Faye strains, metal groans. Henricus limps closer, dagger up. Garrett flings empty water skin, hits nothing. Damian brandishes halberd he seized, stands barrier. Bone key finally turns, mirror pivots. We shove survivors through, slam slab. Mechanism clacks. On our side, safe. On his, stone wall. We don't linger. Upstair, out grate, into infirmary where monks faint at sight of gaunt prisoners. Brother Marcus meets us, terror mixing with awe. Bells peal midday. 1, 2, 3 curls longer than canonical interval. The pre-arranged call to uprising. Courtyard erupts with confusion. Townsfolk gather, some brandishing farm tools, others brandishing accusations. Word of Henricus's secret chamber spreads quick as rumor of free ale. Legate's actual envoy arrives, seal true, flanked by royal guards bristling to showcase justice. He carries our compiled ledgers, Brother Marcus couriered at dawn via swift rider. The envoy reads charges in booming Latin. False imprisonment, murder by starvation, extortion, heresy by torture. The irony. Henricus, dragged from catacombs coughing soot, tries to retort, but voice fails. Chains clink like applause. Crowd roars, half rage, half relief. Evening. We sit on bluff overlooking river where tower smolders. Officials cleansing contamination. Survivors sip broth wrapped in blankets from Abbey. One prisoner, the scholar, recites verses of compassion for captors, irony not lost on us. Elodia tends his wrists. Faye opens copy ledger, now sealed officially. Evidence delivered, she says, voice quavering with exhaustion. But justice? I ask. She smiles bittersweet. Part truth, part performance, like all justice. Lenka produces parchment. Royal edict appointing provisional council to oversee prison reform. Our names absent. Candlemen never recorded in marble. Garrett shrugs. Ghosts prefer dust. We burn disguises, returning lamplighter coat to flame. I watch smoke twist skyward. Imagine it forming question mark above tower ruins. Perhaps future interrogators will study this night, wonder who bent quill to undo rack. But you, listener, heard ink drip in real time. You felt nettle smoke sting eyes. You carried rooster, bone keys, and silence deeper than catacombs. Without your silent breath at my shoulder, none of us exit that mirror. So, before sleep claims you, soft, away from iron clasps, leave last sign below. Type ink prevailed if you believe words can outscream steel. And share this tale. Somewhere another Henricus sharpens quills. Every subscriber arms us with brighter lanterns against his darkness. Close your eyes now. Hear distant bells toll mercy where screams once lived. Feel straw mattress under you, but no shackles, no damp. Breathe lavender drifting from Widow Imke's still. Night is long, but not endless. Dawn will come, and with it new corridors, new keys, new cloaks to borrow. When you wake, I might ask you for our next target. But until then, rest. We earned tonight's silence.